The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a game, no doubt about that. To many, this is one of, if not the greatest games of all time, and it shows. One search on Metacritic, YouTube, or the internet in general will show how loved this game is. The 10 out of 10s, the many re-releases of this game, the soundtrack getting blocked on YouTube really shows how popular this game is. For those of you who have been living under a rock for the past 22 years, Ocarina of Time is a game about a boy who wakes up and is told to save the world from destruction at the age of 10. You need to go through places called dungeons and explore the overworld to get things and beat the evil guy. That is a very oversimplified version of this game's plot, so we'll actually give details about this plot, from unimportant stuff like time travel to the important stuff like what this guy's name is. Now if you know game development, you know this game was developed, and developed it was. Let's talk about that. Ocarina of Time was developed alongside Mario 64, kind of like how the original Legend of Zelda was developed alongside the original Super Mario Bros. The game was planned to launch on the 64DD, a disk drive for the Nintendo 64, but it didn't happen because they couldn't put a cartridge in a disk slot. Also due to high data performance requirements for the game, but come on. 1 plus 1 does not equal cartridge game for a disc add-on, guys. Originally, the devs didn't realize how powerful the N64 was, so they were gonna make Link jump into paintings like Mario 64. Then they realized they were wrong and made an actual world. A relic of this idea can be found in the Puppet Ganon fight in the final game. We'll get to this guy eventually. That's all really to say about this. The coders coded, the artists arted, and the musicians didn't do either of those, just typical game development. The game was released on November 21st, 1998 in Japan, November 23rd in North America, December 11th in Europe, and December 18th in Australia. The game also got re-released twice on the GameCube. Once as a pre-order bonus for the Wind Waker, including the remixed Master Quest version, and again in a collector's edition including Majora's Mask and the first two Zelda games alongside it. It was also re-released on both the Wii and Wii U Virtual Console and got a remake on the 3DS in 2011. Now let's move on to the final game. I'm going to be playing the Wii U Virtual Console re-release because that's just what I have. The game starts off with a cutscene of this guy who, based on the title of the game, I guess is supposed to be Zelda, riding a horse. Going to the file select brings us to a menu where he could either start a new game or go to the options, which is the more important choice here. Yeah, looks good. Now the game asks us to name Zelda. I did that. Then we get treated to a cutscene with text. The text is so slow in this game, I wish there was a way to speed it up. There's this cutscene of a guy riding a horse who is totally not evil. You then get introduced to a character called Navi. Navi tells Zelda that she'll be your partner for the whole game. I then leave my house to get introduced to another new character, being Zelda's best friend. Her name is Zora and she says hello to Zelda as he leaves home. First objective, get a weapon. I crawl through a hole and get a sword. Next objective, get a shield. The only place you could get one is the shop, but you can't rob it so you have to find 40 rupees lying around the forest. You could also buy other items like a Deku's nuts and its stick. Now that I have these, this guy will let me pass so I can go to the big tree. There are some enemies here, they kinda look like piranha plants. You could just stab them in the neck and kill them. You then come across this big tree who's like, "Kid, I need you to go deep inside me." Then you let him eat you. Welcome to the inside of the Deku tree, the first dungeon of the game. Dungeons in this game are all about combat, puzzle solving, and walking around trying to figure out what to do for 3 hours. They're a lot of fun. The first dungeon isn't that long, but it's still rewarding to solve the puzzles and make progress. In each dungeon in the game, there's a dungeon map, a map of the area and showing what rooms you have and haven't gone to, a compass, an item showing where chests are that may contain items or rupees, and the dungeon item, an item found in a dungeon to help you finish the area and progress through the game. In this dungeon, you get a slingshot to shoot things. The puzzles in this area aren't that difficult and you should be able to clear it without many issues. Once you manage to make your way past all the enemies and puzzles, you'll come face to face with a boss, here being Goma. This fight is actually pretty simple, which is good because it's the first boss. When her eyes turn red, use your slingshot to stun her, then attack her as much as you can. She has two attacks. One is to slam down on you, which is pretty easy to avoid and a good opportunity to stun her. Another attack has her poop her babies and you need to attack to kill the babies. If you don't, they hatch and that can be a bit of a problem. Once she dies, she disintegrates and two things spawn. One is a heart container. You get one of these at the end of each dungeon. It gives you one extra heart of health, which is actually pretty useful. The other thing that spawns is a portal that takes you to just outside of the dungeon. Nice of them to put that there. The tree then tells you about how an evil man came and demanded the tree gave him an emerald. The tree was like, "No man, I'm playing it, I'm fighting a gym leader, just give me like 5 more minutes." The man didn't like that, so he put a curse on them and killed them. He then talks about some triangles, they don't seem that important. Wait, are those Doritos? Okay, now I care. The tree then dies in front of your eyes and you get Pokemon Emerald from him. Now it's time to leave the forest. This guy accuses me of homicide on the tree, then I leave to avoid getting arrested. Saria notices you leaving and gives you her ocarina, and then you just run away. No need for goodbyes, I just need to get out of here. The next area is Hyrule Field. This area connects everywhere in the game. It's pretty large, so expect yourself to be spending a lot of time here doing this. Yeah. You first get interrupted by this owl guy who talks for like 8 years about what you need to do. After going through Hyrule Field, you reach Castle Town, an area filled with people and shops and minigames. Up ahead is Hyrule Castle, where the princess resides. There are guards all over the place, but luckily for you, they suck at their job. At the end, you find this guy sleeping. To wake him up, you have to talk to this girl who will give you an egg, wait for it to hatch, then show it to the guy who will immediately leave. You can then break into the castle and, during the day, you could sneak in and sneak by all the guards who all walk in specific patterns. How convenient. When you manage to reach the end, you'll find the princess. I show her my cool Pokemon game that the tree gave me and she tells me about her dream. She believes the dream is a prophecy and you are the hero. She introduces herself as Princess Zelda. Zelda then tells the kid she met like 30 seconds ago a legend that only the royal family knows and expects you to keep it a secret. Well, this game has sold 7.6 million copies, so I wouldn't say it's much of a secret anymore. The story goes in detail about the 3 Doritos from before, nothing interesting. You then see Ganondorf, the guy from the intro cutscene who, if they end up evil, I will eat my sock. I swear he isn't evil. You then learn a song on your ocarina, Zelda's Lullaby. I get this as a short song, but I don't know how this kid should be able to master this song so quickly. You then get told to leave and go to the volcano in the distance. I make my way over to Kakariko village and ignore its existence and decide to go to the graveyard instead. I play the Zelda's Lullaby and go through rooms of sings and learn yet another song, the Sun Song. I also go over to the ranch in Hyrule Field and learn yet another song, a song that calls over a horse. We can't use this yet, but it is a bit useful later on. Going up the volcano, you will find Goron City, a city for the Gorons, in case your brain was the size of a peanut and didn't know. You can make these bombs go boom and access the Lost Woods, a neat little shortcut as the Lost Woods connects to the Kokiri forest. The Lost Woods is a maze, and going the wrong way leads you back to the start. Once you reach the end, you find Saria playing the ocarina. Oh yeah, she taught me a song and well, that's cool. Back in Goron City, I speak to this guy and play Saria's song, and then this guy gives me a bracelet to pick up bombs. Not the smartest move, giving a 10-year-old the ability to use explosives is not really a smart idea. After this, you can blow up the boulder blocking Dodongo's cavern. Why couldn't you guys have done that before? It's not that hard. The Dodongo's cavern is the second dungeon of the game. This dungeon isn't that difficult to get through. Some puzzles may be a bit challenging to figure out, but they aren't that bad. There are some new enemies, like these guys who shoot lasers at us, these shark things that can go boom upon death, these fire-breathing lizards that also go boom upon death, and... The dungeon item is bombs. Probably not a smart idea to give an 11-year-old bombs. The boss of the dungeon is King Dodongo, who is again really easy. Once he starts inhaling, just throw a bomb in his mouth. Pretty easy. The boss was so easy I expected a second phase that was more difficult, but no, he just died. I get more health than leave. I get thanked by the Gorons and get a copy of Pokemon Ruby from them. To get the last game, we need to go to Zora's domain, which you can get to through Zora's River. Entering the area has us greeted by the owl who tells us, "You see the 3 Doritos? Play a song of the princess. Okay, bye." Zora's River is just a long path that involves movement and chickens. A waterfall? Well, just play this random song to do nothing noticeable. Welcome to Zora's domain, the place with fish people, but you can't fish. Speaking to this fish has him throw money in the water and tells you that if you can get them all, they'll give you something nice. Now this kid can only hold his breath for like 3 seconds somehow, but getting them all has the Zora give you the ability to inhale before going underwater. There's a tunnel that takes us to the lake at the south of Hyrule, so another nice shortcut. There's this bottle that contains a note from the princess of the Zora, who you must return to the king. The king reads the letter. Well, she said not to worry about her, so let's go rescue her. I first decided to catch a fish to eat for dinner. Here seems like a nice place. Hey, wait, don't eat me! Stop that! Well, now we're in another dungeon. Again, this puzzle-themed area has puzzles. I know, shocking. In the dungeon, you find Princess Naruto, who's all like, "No, I don't want to leave." Then she falls in a hole. Should have just left, you idiot. Talk to her enough and she'll let you pick her up, and now the dungeon requires you to keep her with you at all times. If you leave a room without her, or she touches water, she'll teleport back to where you found her. In this room, you kill some enemies and get the item of the dungeon, a boomerang. I went into these rooms and threw my toy at the insides of a whale multiple times. Once that's done, we can go in here and Ruto will find what she is looking for, Pokemon Sapphire. Then she gets taken away and I have to fight this thing. Just throw your new toy at it and you should be fine. Now time to do more puzzles. This time with your boomerang. Getting at the end brings us to this guy. Phase 1, just throw your boomerang at these things. Phase 2, stun the body with the boomerang, kill the jellyfish. Phase 3, it will move, just stun it then attack the jellyfish. Phase 4, stun it then attack the body to kill it. With that done, you can leave the dungeon and get a copy of Pokemon Sapphire. But only if you promise to marry Princess Ruto. You don't have to keep that promise, fortunately. Once we reach Castle Town, Zelda comes running out on horse followed by the totally not evil guy. Wait, isn't this the cutscene that plays at the beginning of the game? Did we just go back in time? You may have also noticed that Zelda tossed something in the moat. You get it, and it's the Ocarina of Time. You can roll the credits now. Once you get it, Zelda manages to tell you through magic or something how to play a song, and where to use it. You then learn the Song of Time. You can use it to open the Door of Time. Now we could go over to the Temple of Time in Town Market. Put the Pokemon games in these spots, and play the Song of Time to open the door. Once open, you'll notice there is a sword there. You can pull the sword and get the Master Sword, one of the most powerful swords in the entire franchise. Once you do this, you get a cutscene where Ganondorf is like, haha, I used you to open the door, now I can steal the Doritos. Now you appear in this place where this guy named Rauru is like, you idiot, you let the guy steal my afternoon snack, please give them back. He explains that you are destined to pull the sword and be a hero, but children can't be heroes. Seriously? Have you not played a Pokemon game? 10-year-olds can save the world, why can't I? He tells you that you need to reawaken the other 5 stages to beat Ganondorf, and gives you the Light Medallion. You then meet another character, Sheik of the Sheikah. Really creative name there, Nintendo. She tells you to go to Kakariko village before going to the Forest Temple. Going to the graveyard at Kakariko and pulling this grave reveals a hole leading to a dead guy. Who would have guessed? He challenges you to a race. I beat him, and he gave me his grappling hook. You then go back to the Lost Woods and back to where you learn Saria's song. You find Sheik and she teaches you how to play a new song, one that warps you back here, which is actually pretty useful. Now it's dungeon time, the Forest Temple. This dungeon is big. Definitely larger than the 3 you go through as a child. There are a lot of puzzles in here and some are pretty tricky to figure out. The main gimmick of the dungeon is that these ghosts put out some candles so you have to kill them. The ghosts are hiding all over the place and it will probably take you a while to find them. You still have the dungeon map and compass that you need to find like before, but now there is the boss key that you also need to find in order to access the boss. As I capture the ghosts and steal back the light, I got the dungeon item, the bow. Using the bow, you can solve some really cool puzzles, like this one with the twisting rooms. It's just really cool, I like this one. The boss of the dungeon is Ganondorf. So we're already at the final boss? No, it's just a ghost of him. To beat this guy, you need to shoot him with the bow or hookshot as he comes out of the painting. After a few hits, he starts using Electro Ball on you. Deflect his balls and win. After that fight, you reunite with Saria, who is a sage. She thanks you for beating up the dead and gives you something in return. She gives us the Forest Medallion. Upon leaving, you find a seed planted in the ground, who reveals itself to be the Deku tree sprout, which will grow to be the big tree in the forest. You can now go back to the Temple of Time and learn yet another song. This one allows you to warp back to the Temple of Time. Again, pretty handy. Our next destination is the Goron City. There aren't any Gorons except this kid rolling around, so I decide to blow him up and he gives me his clothes. Apparently this kid is named after me and he wants to be like me. Well kid, you gotta keep rolling. I do it all the time. The clothes the kid gave me apparently protect me from extreme heat, so let's go into a volcano. While here, Sheik teaches us more music and we find yet another dungeon. This dungeon is again big. The place has a lot of floors and a few parts where you can fall down to lower levels, so watch out. You reunite with Darunia and he just leaves. By going through the boss door without a key, he cheated! This dungeon's gimmick is going through the floors rescuing Gorons. You have to find the switches that open up the cages to free the Gorons. Why would the bad guys put switches like this? It makes it very easy for someone to help them out. There's also this guy who you have to fight a few times. Just blow him up then stab him, nothing too difficult. The item of the dungeon is the Megaton Hammer, a large hammer that can break some things and do a lot of damage. After getting this, freeing the Gorons and getting the boss key, you can find the boss. The boss in this dragon is Volvagia. Volvagia will come out of a hole and you have to smash them with a hammer. Sometimes Volvagia will make it rain rocks. They hurt, so that's not really that nice. It can also breathe fire, just shield that. After smashing it a bunch, Volvagia will die and you can leave. Darunia is also a sage and he thanks you for helping and gives you the fire medallion. The place we need to go now is Zora's domain. When you arrive, you find that the entire place is frozen over with the Zoras trapped underneath. Well, that's not really that good. Even the king is frozen over in a crystal. Going behind the king shows that the water has been very conveniently frozen over in platforms leading to a new part that contains a dungeon. Well, actually not a dungeon, a mini dungeon. Different from a regular dungeon as it's much smaller and doesn't have a boss fight at the end, and as such, no new medallion for you. The theme of this dungeon is ice physics, my favorite aspect in video games. The puzzles are cool, but honestly, I just don't care about this place at all. The puzzles are mostly either breaking things, collecting silver rupees where you need to get all 5 to progress, or pushing blocks on ice. Like I said, this mini dungeon, I just don't really care about it. It feels like it would have been cooler if it was a regular dungeon, but it feels short and I just don't really enjoy going through it that much. The item you get for going through this place is the iron boots. The iron boots are an item that you equip in the menu, like with the shields. What it does is slow you down, but it also sinks you to the bottom of water, so you can move around there. It's a pretty neat item, but the fact that you have to open the menu every time you want to equip or unequip it is such a pain. I really wish it could be assigned to a button like the other items and in future games. You could also learn the Serenade of Water, a song that takes you to Lake Hylia. Upon leaving, you can also use some of the fire from the dungeon to free King Zora and get his clothes. These clothes allow you to breathe underwater, which is very handy in just a bit. A bit has passed, and now it's time to talk about it. You know what I'm talking about. The Water Temple. This dungeon, woo boy, is a big old pain in the ass to do. This dungeon is infamous for being difficult, and I'll say, while I didn't die much in this dungeon, so many of the puzzles are difficult to figure out and are a pain to have to do. The main gimmick of this dungeon is changing the water levels. There are 3 levels, low, medium, and high water. Some areas are only accessible on certain water levels, but my god is it a pain to have to go back, change the water level, and then make progress through the dungeon. You also have to make a lot of use of equipping and unequipping the iron boots, which I've already mentioned that I hated, but you have to do it so much in this dungeon. Now that I've talked about the negatives, let's talk about the few positives this dungeon has. Number 1, the dungeon item is the long shot. It's the hook shot, but it reaches farther. A really cool and nice upgrade for the hook shot. Number 2, the mini boss of the dungeon is against your own shadow, Dark Link. So the protagonist's name is Link. Why call the game The Legend of Zelda then? Shouldn't it be The Legend of Link instead? Dark Link uses his sword just like you do, and he even has the same amount of HP you have at full health. This fight is a bit tricky, but still really awesome. Number 3, the final boss of the dungeon isn't that difficult, so it's a bit relaxing considering the difficulty of the dungeon beforehand. And finally, number 4, it ends. Once you beat the dungeon, you meet up with Princess Ruto again, and she gives you something in return for clearing the dungeon. You get the water medallion. Once you complete the water and fire temples, going to Kakariko village shows a scene with Sheik and the well. Something decides to jump out of the well and attack. You try to fight it, but that doesn't go well. You then learn the Nocturne of Shadow, a song that can teleport you to the Kakariko graveyard and is the only way to access the Shadow Temple. You can go and do the Shadow Temple now and beat it, but that is not what the game intends for you to do, and it will make the dungeon a lot more painful. Instead, talk to this guy and he will teach you the Song of Storms. He states that a kid with an ocarina had played that song and all of a sudden the windmills were screwed up. How dare a kid do that? Who would do such a thing, man? Anyway, go back to the Temple of Time and play the song in front of that guy. After terrorizing an innocent man, the water in the well will drain, because as we all know, rain makes wells lose water. Welcome to the bottom of the well, yet another mini dungeon. Unlike the Ice Cavern, I actually quite like this one. There are quite a few things you can do here, but if you want the item, you can get it pretty fast. Just play Zelda's Lullaby here, go down here, fight the boss, which is— what the hell is that? That thing, which is a dead hand, is terrifying. Like, what the heck, game? Beating this guy gives you the Lens of Truce. That's all you need to do here, but there's more to this place. There are a lot of walls and parts of the floor that don't have collision. You can use the lens of truth to figure out what parts have no collision, and you can find some things hiding in the walls. I really like the atmosphere of this place. It's just so creepy and so cool at the same time. Now we have the lens of truth. Now we can do the Shadow Temple without being stupid. Upon entering the temple, you realize this place isn't messing around. This place is so creepy and disturbing. Whether it's the designs on the walls and floors, the music, the obstacles, all of it makes for a really cool and disturbing place. The item of the dungeon is actually obtained pretty early, being the hover boots. These boots allow you to walk on air for a brief period of time, at the cost of slow traction. Like I said before, this place is really freaking creepy. Like, one of the obstacles you find are guillotines. Near the end of the dungeon, you go on this boat and fight enemies on your way to the final part, which I think is pretty cool. The boss of this area is Bongo Bongo, who can be a pain to fight sometimes. Sometimes when I hookshot its hands, I end up hitting the bongo instead, which is pretty annoying. His attacks can also be a bit tricky to avoid, and this fight feels a bit repetitive. Other than that, it's okay, I guess. The Sage Impa, the person in charge of protecting Zelda, thanks you for completing the dungeon and gives you the Shadow Medallion. Our next destination is the Gerudo Desert, a desert that houses the Gerudos. In this area is the Gerudo Fortress, a fortress where the Gerudos keep prisoners and is basically their base. Upon entering the area, you pretty much immediately get spotted and arrested. Luckily for you, the Gerudos are stupid enough to let you keep everything you brought. Along with this, there's a window that you can conveniently hookshot. The main goal of this area is to sneak around all the areas and find all the carpenters that were captured. If you get spotted, you get thrown all the way back to the beginning, which can be a bit of a pain sometimes. When you find a carpenter, you have to battle a Gerudo. It's not that hard, just slash when they don't have their defense up. After defeating all of them and rescuing the carpenters, one of the Gerudos says that she was watching you the whole time. Kinda creepy. She then gives us a Gerudo membership card. I don't remember signing up for this membership though. It allows us to go anywhere in the Gerudo Fortress and not get captured. Great! Once you do all of that, you can now access the Haunted Wasteland. This place is simple. If flag on screen, go to flag. Eventually, you reach a point where there are no flags. To continue, you must use the Lens of Truth to see a ghost leading the way. Once you make it to where the temple is, enter, then realize you can't do anything and get confused as to what you did wrong, then leave. Once you leave, Sheikah talks to you about how only children can continue the dungeon. What great design! Let the children go to dangerous places rather than the adults. You learn the song to warp back here, then become a child again and warp back here. Now that you are small, you can go in holes. As a child, there's a person here named Naburu who asks you to do the dangerous stuff. This dungeon is split in two parts. One part as a child and one part as an adult, which is pretty cool. I'm surprised this game didn't do more of that with the other dungeons. Why is this the only one where you switch between child and adult? The puzzles in this places are what you'd expect from a Zelda dungeon, but the main gimmick is light. There are these suns that need light to shine on them in some parts, so you need to go do that. Once you reach the end of the child part, you find a new enemy, an Iron Knuckle. This guy is the mini-boss of the area and can be a bit tricky. You have to slash it then back up just before you get hit. It also does a lot of damage, so that's scary. Once it dies, go outside and open the chest to get the Silver Gauntlets. You then see Naburu get sucked into the Shadow Realm, but I'm sure nothing bad will happen to her. Become an adult again and go back to the Spirit Temple. With the Silver Gauntlets, you can push big blocks. Neat! The puzzles aren't much different as adult, but they do make a bit of usage out of your adult-only items. Once you make your way to the top, you get another item, the Mirror Shield. This allows you to reflect light like a mirror. Once you get the boss key and fight the boss, you see the witches that trap Naburu as they send an Iron Knuckle after you. It's pretty easy, just kill it before it kills you and you'll be fine. And now we have the real deal. The boss is the two witches, and they attack with fire and ice. To beat these two, use the magic of one and reflect with the Mirror Shield onto the other one. After enough damage, they fusion dance and you get this. Phase 2, they will shoot fire and ice at random, just shield it. Once you've shielded 3 in a row of the same attack, it will reflect because logic. You then can attack and do damage. Once you do that, you see the sisters argue then fly away. Walk into the blue light and you get the Spirit Medallion from the Sage Naburu. Now we have all the medallions. We can now tackle Ganon's castle. Or not, I don't think tackling a castle will do anything. Before going to Ganon's castle, you need to go to the Temple of Time. Once there, you'll find Sheik who talks to you about the Doritos things from earlier and tells you that Ganondorf has the Triforce of Power. You have the Triforce of Courage, and Sheik has the Triforce of Wisdom. Sheik then reveals himself to be the princess. What a twist! She then gives you the light arrows which are needed to beat the final boss. How convenient. Then the princess gets captured. It's a Nintendo game. Did you not expect the princess to get captured? We can now go to Ganon's castle. The sages build us a bridge and we can enter. This place has 6 main areas that you go through, one for each of the sages. Your goal is to clear the puzzles in each area and rescue the sages. None of them are particularly difficult and should be of no issue for you to complete. Just do the puzzles and you'll be fine. The Shadow Route actually has a new item, being the Golden Gauntlets, which allow you to throw big rocks, and it's required to get to the Light Route and complete the Fire Route. Once you clear all of the paths, you can climb the big tower and make your way to Ganondorf. A few of the rooms have enemies in them, and one of them has the boss key. Killing the enemies shouldn't be an issue, you've fought them all before. Once you reach the top, you find Ganondorf playing the organ. He'll then battle you. He starts with using Earthquake and the blocks around you fall. When you're not in the center, Ganondorf will attack with Electro Ball. Just like with the Forest Temple fight, knock it back at him. Gaming! Once he's hit with the Electro Ball, you have to shoot him with the Light Arrow to be able to attack. Then you can go to the center and attack him. This fight is a bit challenging, but deflecting the Electro Ball gets boring after a bit. He does have another attack where he sends 4 balls after you, but you can spin attack them, Light Arrow attack. Once you manage to defeat Ganondorf, you've beaten the game! Wait, you aren't done yet. You still need to escape the castle, as the castle is collapsing. You have 3 minutes to escape, and you must keep a steady pace with Zelda, but she just moves so slow! There is plenty of time to escape, but that doesn't make it feel less tense. Once you escape, you watch the castle collapse, and you've beaten the game. Oh, come on! Ganondorf is still alive and transforms into... this. Ganon, the beast form of Ganondorf, challenges you to one of the most climactic battles in video games history. This battle is so grand, so epic. The music, the lighting, the size of Ganon is just great. At the beginning of the fight, the Master Sword gets knocked out of your hand and you can't get it. The fight is pretty easy, you just roll under him and attack with your other stuff like the long shot or hammer at the tail. After a bit of damage, you get the Master Sword back, which is great considering that it's required. Once he is down the second time, Zelda will stun him and you will do the final blow to beat the game. Ganon will be sealed away and you saved Hyrule. This fight is so climatic and cool that it splits the timeline in 3. After the battle, Zelda warps you away back to a child, where you can relive your child years and the credits roll. Well, I've gone over the places you go, the events of the game, and shared my thoughts on each of those. What's left to talk about? Well, this game has side quests, and a lot of them. I'm not going over all of them, as there are quite a few, but I'll stick with the highlights. In the game, there's this house in Kakariko village where this guy is one of the big spiders. He says that he and his family are under a curse where they are all trapped as these creatures, and he wants you to help him. Around Hyrule, there are 100 gold Skulltulas that you must kill. Some of them can be only accessed as a child or adult, some only appear at certain times of the day, and some are very well hidden. But if you want 100% completion, you need to get them all. In Lon Lon Ranch, you can speak to this girl and show her your ocarina. If you do, you'll learn Epona's song. Going back as an adult allows you to race this guy, and using Epona's song allows you to use Epona in the race. By beating this guy twice, you get Epona. Epona moves much faster than your normal means of travel, so using her will allow you to get to certain places faster. There is also the Happy Mask Shop. The way this works is you borrow a mask from this guy, find the person to sell it to, then pay this guy back for the cost of the mask. The people you need to sell the masks to can be found all over Hyrule, so it might take a while for you to find them all. Your reward is being able to borrow any mask you want free of charge, and the Mask of Truth. What this mask does is allow you to speak to these gossip stones and get tips from them. It's not really that useful, but it's still a bit neat. I do wish the whole mask concept was expanded on a little bit. Who knows, maybe they can make that the main gimmick of a future game. My favorite side quest is the one for the big Goron sword. Here's how you do that quest. Speak to this person in Kakariko to get an egg. Play the sun song until it's morning. Enter this house and use the cuckoo on the guy sleeping here. Speak to the lady and get Kojiro. Go to the Lost Woods and take a left to find this guy. Use Kojiro and you get the odd mushroom. Now you must go to Kakariko, enter the shop, go out the back, and speak to this person to get the odd potion, all within 3 minutes and without using warps. Give the potion to the girl here who says that this guy turned into a Stalfos, and you get the Poacher's Saw. Give this guy in Gerudo Valley the Poacher's Saw and get the broken Big Goron sword. Give the Big Goron sword to this guy at the top of Death Mountain and you'll get the prescription. Give this to King Zora and you'll get the Eyeball Frog. Take this to the guy in the lab at Lake Hylia within a time limit and get the world's finest eye drops. Take these to the big Goron and you get the claim check. Play a song a few times to make a few days pass and you finally get the big Goron sword. This sword is pretty interesting. It does more damage than the Master Sword, but you can't use your shield in return. I tend to use this when dealing damage to bosses when they are down. One final thing to note here is that around Hyrule, you can find these things called heart pieces. While they look exactly like the heart containers, those only appear at the end of dungeons and give you a full heart of health. These ones don't. You need to collect 4 heart pieces before the game gives you another heart of health. There are a total of 36 heart pieces and they are found all over the place. Well, that's it. I've covered the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. What are my thoughts on this game? This game is really freaking good. The puzzles, the dungeons, the story, the characters, all are just so enjoyable and make for an unforgettable experience. While I wouldn't say this is my favorite game of all time, I can definitely say this game is in my top 10 favorite games. So much fun and so enjoyable. I'd recommend you guys play this game if you haven't already. I would recommend having a walkthrough open in case you get stuck, as this game can be a bit cryptic as to what to do, if you want your playthrough to not be that long, or if you want to 100% the game without much issue. Now then, I feel like that's it for this video. Next time, we got Majora's Mask to talk about. Thank you all for watching.